Hello, everyone on Zoom and the internet. Welcome to the International Indie Music Season panel on strategies how to promote an international act in the market, or I want to break China. So this session is going to revolve around successful marketing campaigns in the Chinese market, what can be learned, and what are the do's and don'ts. And just a small note on the topic, China becoming a main focus market in a lot of industries. We're seeing this especially in the music industry, which is developing at a really rapid speed. And we're seeing both international artists as well as China-based artists at different stages of their careers playing a big part in that. And so this panel will be looking at how one can help international artists to have better development in China and promote themselves amongst Chinese fans. And today we're honored to have joining us for this discussion for seasoned professionals in the industry, representing both event organizers and international organizations who've established professional music promotion and management services in China. So before we go into today's discussion, please allow me to introduce our guests, and they'll each give an introduction of what they're doing in the music industry. And so let's start with Jane Polubotko from Kanjian.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sam. My name is Jane, and I work for Kanjian Music. That's the Chinese, based in China, Chinese company, full stack music services company. We do music distribution, promotion and marketing, sync, live streaming, and live events. I'm responsible for marketing and promotion. So today I'm going to be talking about this, sharing some case studies.
Thank you, Jane. Jeff Vreys.
Yeah, hello everybody, I'm Jeff. I'm based in Chengdu, China. I founded a company called New Noise in 2009, and we mainly promote foreign bands in Asia, mainly in China. And we do everything from marketing, tickets, advancing tours, and promoting shows. And we've worked with bands such as Mogwai, Explosions in the Sky, and Japanese bands like Mono, The Film, all kinds of bands. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Yu Yang.
Hi everyone, I'm Yu Yang, and I'm the co-founder of Alter Shanghai. So we've been bringing international electronic music artists to China since 2018. So that involved with finding a venue, do production, marketing, promotion, PR, everything around the artist himself or herself, and the event itself. So today I will be sharing our experience of this painful but very happy journey with everyone.
Thank you. And last but not least, Archie Hamilton.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, my name's Archie. I've been running a company called Splitworks in China for 15 years now. And I have to say that 2020 is the weirdest year of all, and there have been some pretty weird years in that time. We started as a promoter, and we've evolved into a booking agency for Asia, and we run a lot of campaigns around music for brands. We have done 26 festivals over those 15 years in China. We've run conferences around music, and yeah, we've done not a lot this year so far. We're chilling hard.
Nice. Thank you, Archie. So for the next part, before we get into more of a conversation discussion. Would like to ask each of our guests to share a case study of their own organization. So starting with Jane, I guess if each of you could say a bit about your organization, just specifically in relation to the topic for today of promotion of international artists in China.
Right. So I'd like to start with the fact that we're mainly focusing on the digital promotion, and in general, our business is more like in the digital perspective. So we're taking care of promoting the artist's digital presence, digital profile within the Chinese digital landscape, which is pretty different from the Western ones. So yeah, like coming directly to the case studies, there is the recent artist that we signed and started working with. His name is Josh Comby, an American singer, songwriter, and music producer. He works with, he produced music for like top US artists, Madonna, Take That, Kygo. He did collaboration with Armin van Buuren before, and right now he's signed to IIMS Japan, and he's establishing like his own solo career in the West and in Asia as well. So we're helping and running him his own social accounts here in China. Weibo, NetEase, like that's the must of the social media accounts for the musicians, artists in China. We're also looking for collaboration opportunities with the Chinese artists and any other different business opportunities. His new release is coming soon, and we'll make sure like we keep you updated about the results and how everything is going. Another like case study that I can share with was the artist called MXM Tune, and with her we only had the distribution rights. That meant that we were only pushing her new release through the local DSPs, and it ended up with a like very good featuring on most of the biggest major DSPs here. So she has like few playlists on NetEase. NetEase asked for exclusive rights for 3 days for the content, but still other platforms were willing to feature her. So there was banner from Xiaomi, playlists on Chen Chen Taihua, banner on podcast app called Tingban, or the former name is Koala FM. The campaign resulted in around plus 3,000 followers on NetEase. So when she started, she had around 18,000 followers, and like within 1 month after the release, it was like around 21,000 followers.
Thank you, Jane. Next up is Jeff.
Like for all these bands that we've been bringing to China, like for most of them, they come back like a few times. So every time when I start working with a band, I hope it's like a long-term project. Today, I would love to talk about a band that is very close to my heart. Is Mono from Japan. The first time I worked with them, I think it was 2011. So it's like almost 10 years. They've toured China basically every 2 years because they release like a new album roughly like every 2 years. I've brought them to like multiple Chinese festivals, like Strawberry, maybe Zebra Festival, yeah, like quite a lot. But like when I start working with them, I promised them like when you guys come to China, we really need to put in the effort. But what we've did with them, like I manage all their social media within China. So they have like a pretty good Weibo accounts and like NetEase accounts, Xiaomi accounts, basically like all the things that Jane mentioned as well. I do think that like promoting bands for China, sometimes you really need to make some content that is like exclusively for China. So every time when they release like an album, I ask the band to make like special videos for the Chinese crowd, so that like the people in China, they know that like the artist really cares about them. And then you get like much love back. I feel like when we upload videos, if they do like interviews, like we make sure like everything is translated into Chinese. I do think like when you work with artists, like they should have like a lot of content. So like if you want to break into any market, I do think like the content you can provide is super important. For mono, it's been great that they've really like releasing like stuff every 2 years. If we work like on a tour cycle, like they always start in China because they know like promotion wise we can do like a pretty good job. So the same things like Jane mentioned, like we will get like banners on NetEase, on Xiaomi, on QQ. Yeah, so I think to keep in mind like what are the channels that actually work. I think it's still like WeChat, Weibo. Be creative and make sure that like you have an interaction with your crowd in Asia or like in China. I think like can show like good results. That's it.
Thank you, Jeff. Next is Yu Yang.
Yes. So, so in my experience of bringing international electronic music artists, one thing I find is that electronic music, not the EDM part, but more like disco, house, techno, is very, very niche in China. So in that case, and also we bring mostly smaller names, very niche. Even in Europe, only the real diggers will know. So for us, it's definitely a big challenge how to make the event successful with such small names. One thing I came to realization is that we cannot really rely on the artist's name because nobody know and nobody really know the genre even. So what we did is to build our own brand instead. So we spent a lot of energy on the marketing, the strategy, the visual communication of our brand. Then people come once, they have a great experience, then they just trust whoever we bring. So in that case, we don't have to pay a lot to big names and take the financial risk, but instead we go for more real music and smaller names and bring smaller artists, but people come to realization, wow, the music is great. So they get education about the music, about the artist. So in that case, I think it's more a healthy circle, less financial burdens and less risks, and people still have the great experience. But even in this whole process of building our own brand for every artist, we also have our marketing campaign, of course. So in China, WeChat is definitely the biggest, right? So we have WeChat groups of thousands of people. We have our WeChat posts that push into every channel. We do an interview with artists. We also go online, find the content that I find very interesting, and I translate everything to push into the Chinese media channel. Then, of course, we try to get their own feature on local media as well. Then we talk with Fever, NetEase, everything. So try to get as much interesting content as possible in a strategic way and push to our own community. So far, I think it has been working, and I do believe building community and the brand of your own, plus a good marketing campaign around the artist itself. This combination will really benefit both us and the artists we bring.
Thank you. And now Archie.
But say last but not least again, you could have So we've been working in all different kinds of ways with artists over the years. You know, when we started, we were working purely as a promoter. And I remember around 2007, 2008, when Douban first arrived as the kind of the first place really in China online that people could get together around topics that they were interested in. So whether that was a band or a book or a film, or, you know, it's become like a sort of critic site now, but back then it was just informal groups of people gathering around things that they loved. And it was a beautiful time, honestly. You know, a little bit like the early days of Facebook, a little bit like the early days of, you know, even MySpace, if people's memories go back that far. It was possible to have organic growth of an artist. It wasn't all about algorithms and playing the algorithms and, you know, pay to play and, you know, all the kind of bullshit that you have to deal with now. So back then, I basically said to every artist that we wanted to invite to China that I would manage their social media for free, which, you know, was back in the days where I was maybe a little bit more of an altruist. And so after about a year and a half, I ended up, you know, thinking that, hey, I'm managing 800 social media accounts for free, and this is kind of insane. You know, although we're very lucky in China, we have lots of students who come through as interns and lots of passionate music fans, certainly in the early days, who would do stuff, you know, for free or for the love of the artist or whatever. You know, over the last 10 years, that's changed a little. I think the market has become more professional. The industry, I say, has become more professional. You know, you have distributors, you have labels, you have DSPs. I mean, you know, most of this has only existed for the last 3 or 4 years in any meaningful way, because before the big kind of battle between the DSPs, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where, you know, Baidu Music, Alibaba had Xiaomi, QQ obviously had its various, or Tencent obviously had its various kind of streaming platforms, and there were others as well. When those companies started to pay big upfronts, minimum guarantees to get catalog, to get IPO'd, basically, you know, again, a bit of kind of background between around these big businesses in China. You know, the model is generally create a story, make it massive, an IPO, take the money in, and then, you know, go buy a house somewhere else. Generally, my understanding. So there was this big battle of the DSPs maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where Tencent started to pay advances, and then NetEase started to pay advances, and then Xiaomi started to pay advances, and suddenly the Western labels and publishers had a field day, basically taking these huge amounts of money off these guys, off these companies, in terms of advances. And the problem that we have now is that since Tencent IPO, Tencent Music TME IPO'd, there's suddenly a lot less incentive to actually pay, you know, any more than you're making, if that makes sense. So they were paying huge amounts of investment money to get to IPO, and post IPO, they've decided that they don't really care so much about paying people anything, because they've made their money and whatever else. And so there's been this kind of model built on these advances, major labels, minor labels, distributors, and I'm sure Jane can talk a little bit more to this point. And now that business doesn't exist to the same degree as it did. And we've seen that through festivals, we've seen that through, you know, tangential industries like e-commerce, like ride sharing, like bike sharing, you know, all these crazy kind of venture funded, you know, venture fueled explosions of industry that basically die as soon as it reaches any kind of maturity. So the market for promoting bands has kind of gone in particularly internationally, was very interesting for a minute, you know, for maybe 2 or 3 years, when the labels thought, hey, there's money to be made in China, and the distributors were like, hey, there's money to be made in China. They all got really excited about it. They all started partnering with people and promoting artists across the board. And of course, now that those advances aren't there, and now the payouts are still very, very hard. Again, Jane can talk to this. You know, the payouts are very, very difficult to get off the labels. It's very hard to get any kind of reporting or data or play counts or anything from the DSPs. It is getting a little better for sure, but it's still pretty hopeless. That interest has gone a little bit, I would say, and all the labels and managers and stuff have gone, yeah, well, China too hard again. And so, you know, the key for us as an industry, I suppose, is to keep trying to elevate that situation, you know, keep trying to get artists paid, because we know the platforms are making money, a lot of money. And obviously this is a conversation, a worldwide conversation, but I'd say, you know, like most business areas in China, there's a lack of transparency. You know, at least Spotify publishes what it gives to the artists. You know, there's no such thing in China. No one knows what per stream payments are. No one knows how many streams have actually happened. So, you know, we need to keep kind of trying to raise the bar, keep trying to talk to the, you know, create these processes so that artists can get paid, because artists are getting listened to a lot in China. International music is big. You know, we've crunched some numbers around the DSPs, and we reckon there's an audience in China of 100 million people that like English language music based on streaming preferences. Now that's a country the size of, I mean, if the equivalent of a country the size of France, that really has nobody doing any work on it. You know, I mean, with all due respect to the people on the panel, and all of our friends who work on this stuff night and day, in comparison to more mature westernized markets, if you said there was a country the size of France that had no companies inside it, that all those people inside that country liked that kind of music, like English language music, and there were literally no companies of any size or scale doing any work to promote artists, to push music, people would think you were completely crazy. And so that's kind of the scale of the opportunity, because that's 100 million people based on the fact that there's basically very few companies, individuals, entities doing any work. And so potentially, you know, that number could go up 2-3 times. I have no idea what the ultimate potential is. And so it's exciting. And so you know, I'm not really talking about promoting international artists per se, but I'm trying to give some context to the way the market exists at the moment and the possibilities for the future.
Thank you, Archie. So now we'd like to kind of shift into more of a conversation. And I guess to start things off, I want to get into some specific things that each of you mentioned later. But first, just generally, would like to ask for your observation or thoughts about international artists right now who have some presence here. What do you see that's going well for international artists, and what, I guess, have you seen kind of change in the approach that international artists or their labels or managers are taking to approach the Chinese market?
I mean, I'm happy to start if that's okay. I mean, as I said just before, you know, I feel there's been a kind of a moment where there was a huge amount of excitement around China. You know, China started to pay, we can make money, even when we're not touring, you know, that coincided with the kind of EDM craze around festivals and events around sort of 2017, 2018. And, you know, DJs were getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to come and play, you know, huge events by the, you know, the PR photos showed a different story to the reality behind a lot of these events. And I think all of us probably saw and felt that there was increasing numbers of young Chinese, middle-aged Chinese, old Chinese, whichever way you want to look at it, who were kind of intrigued and interested by music from outside of China. And I think that was partly due to a sort of ever-increasing openness around the Chinese internet through the late 2000s and the early 2010s. I would say the last 5 years, there's been a kind of contraction in terms of that. The internet has become much more closed to the outside world. The Chinese internet has become kind of a Chinese intranet.
I do feel like this community that Archie mentioned, like the Douban days was amazing, was probably like one of the most exciting times. Like 5 years ago, I felt like there's maybe like too much bands trying to come to China. So it was like 10 years ago, like people would go to see like a foreign band just because it was a foreign band. Like these days are over as well. Like I feel like Chinese crowd are like more and more picky, like which shows they want to see. Especially like the bigger cities like Shanghai, Beijing, you can see like Western bands like all the time.
And I think that's partly also because of the ticket prices, right? I mean, the ticket prices,
exactly. Like
the ticket prices have gone from. I mean, I remember I was looking at some posters that we used to do. You know, I remember we brought Shabazz Palaces in 2013, and it was 50 kwai, and I wonder myself how we afforded to do that. But there seemed, you know, that ticket price would now be 180 or 200 or whatever. You know, the inflation in ticket prices has gone through the roof, and I'm really interested once touring comes back, if it ever comes back, you know, what the reaction will be, because I felt that people were starting to get pretty sick of watching the ticket price kind of add 20-30% every year.
I also agree, like recently, especially like in the last 4 years, the costs of touring like in China really like are too high, like a venue cost, like a permission cost, like anything, like I do think like my cost, like compared to 5 years ago, are at least double.
If I might interrupt you also and like say a few words on this topic. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Because I have like more digital perspective, which is, I guess, a little bit different from your guys. And I want to go back to the question that you, Archie, mentioned about the DSPs and that thing. I feel like the biggest difference between West and China is that, and Asia actually in general, is that people in Asia discover music in a different way. I feel like in the West it's more like live shows, community, playlists is a big part. And I feel like in China it's more really about those different video apps like Douyin, Kuaishou, and you know that there's not just one Douyin, there's a lot of similar ones. So it's more about discovering the music within the situation. It's like you have the video, you have the situation, and it's like you watch a mini movie or an ad maybe, because there's, you know, an image and the music together.
Yeah, I think I mean I think that's a global phenomenon. Certainly, the whole short video, Douyin, TikTok. I mean, if you look at, but
it started from China, from Asia.
No, for sure. I think that that's the kind of change, right? Is that previously a Douban or a Renren or a Kaixin Wang was a clone of a Western sort of social network or video sharing site or whatever else. You know, Tudo Yoku was obviously a YouTube knockoff, and obviously the last 2-3 years, particularly with Douyin and blowing that out to TikTok, it's become, you know, really a kind of Chinese-led, or as you say, an Asian-led thing. But I'd say the breakouts, in my mind, the breakouts, musical breakouts, came from the West. So I heard about a breakout artist from TikTok before I heard of a breakout artist from Douyin, because one of the problems that I've always found, you know, is in China is it's really hard to connect the artist with the song, because there's a sort of a bit of a lack of self-motivated interest to find out what that song is or who the artist behind the song is. And it's always been the case in China, is that, you know, people are quite passive in terms of their consumption, I feel. You know, that's why Douyin, I felt, was such a successful app in China, is because I just watched people in a cafe just flicking and I just, you know, it made me really depressed watching people just kind of mindlessly flicking through the app. But in terms of a broader population, that interest of finding out who the artist is and tracking them down and becoming a fan still isn't mainstream.
Like, I have a question for you. Like, in all these years, like, many bands, like, they ask me, what do you do digitally? For me, I think it's just like important, like, to be on every platform, because I've never seen a Western artist getting like big money from like streamings. Like, is it still the case?
It is still the case, and
Okay.
it's really not the matter of how the artist is famous outside of China. It's the matter how big he is inside of China. There can be not very famous people on, you know, Spotify, iTunes, but because of the organic traction, because of the people really like at some point the track, and then, you know, like one thing that Archie just mentioned now, the fact that there's a lack of local people being interested in the artist profile. Maybe it's actually also the lack of artist presence within the digital space. So it's also important to kind of grow the information, you know, do the articles, work with KOLs, as you, Jeff, mentioned, like with those communities, Weibo accounts, and also be open to different business opportunities, brands, collaboration with artists, and so on.
Jeff, just to your point, or your question, we did an album launch kind of campaign and for Cigarettes After Sex last year, and I think we got something like 15 or 16 million listens of that album across the course of the sort of campaign, which I think was 12 weeks or something, and the royalty check was under $1,000. So, you know, you can kind of do the numbers.
Exactly.
It's not.
Exactly.
It's not making.
But for me,
rich.
like, exactly. But like, for me, thank you for doing this campaign, because I've been selling their records in this time without concerts, and I think I probably sold like at least 60 copies.
Yeah,
so
cool.
I do think like a difference, like I don't know, like the record sales at the moment for Europe, but like when I have like touring artists like in China, like buying records at shows is still a thing. There's like almost no record stores in China, but like buying like a thing, like a CD, like a t-shirt, a vinyl at a show, like these numbers are actually like amazing. Like I've toured with like a Japanese band as well, the Finn, and I think on one tour they sold roughly like 3,000 CDs.
Yeah,
which is
no,
like
we've
quite
had
numbers,
similar.
I feel.
I feel the people, the fans are real fans, right? The fans are
Exactly.
are hardcore, but it's just about breaking beyond the niches, which is something that we've been trying for 15 years, you know, trying to get those artists from, you know, organically from an artist that can sell 1,000 tickets or get 1 million streams or have 20,000 NetEase fans to being an artist that can sell 10,000 records, 10,000 tickets, have 150,000 NetEase fans and a few million streams. It's really, really, really hard because, and this has been a problem for me for again, the whole time that I've been doing this, is there's no media. There's no entities doing any work in China on a kind of, I'm interested in this artist, I'm going to promote it, you know, without getting paid. You know, if you go down the KOL route, which we've done occasionally, you know, we do it more for our brand clients than we do for the artists themselves, but for a Cigarettes After Sex campaign or for a Bon Iver campaign, we did Bon Iver last year, or for a Two Door Cinema Club campaign, you know, we did all of these kind of album launches or social media kind of infrastructure constructions. You know, going the KOL route is unbelievably frustrating because no one gives a shit about promoting the artist for nothing just because they like the artist. It's about how much you can pay them, and until that mentality changes, it's always going to be really, really difficult to make the China market kind of almost worthwhile for artists to invest into, because there's no organic reach, right? You only get as much as you pay for. So if you pay for this much, you get this much, right? Whereas I'm sure in the UK and the US and Australia and France and Germany, you pay for this much, you get this much, right? Because there's a sort of post media spend organic kind of like snowballing effect, I think, which just doesn't really seem to exist in China. It's so hard to get that organic reach, but we keep trying.
Well, I feel so talking about the artist promotion and make people know about it and pay for the tickets, merchandising, everything. Again, I feel, I'm sure Sam feels like this because we are more in the DJ spectrum. So for us, I don't think it's ever possible to make the DJs we bring known among all our audience. They are too niche. But one thing, as I talked before, is to build your own brand. For example, Mama has an elevator, right? So people who go to elevator, they have this consistent experience and they enjoyed it. They will come back whenever, like no matter what they're doing, or whoever they are bringing, smaller and bigger, for us is the same. So I've changed my mindset from bringing artists and sell the tickets because of the name of the artist, because in that case, you have to spend a lot of money on paying the artists, international traveling, marketing campaign, advertisement, KOL, as Archie mentioned. Versus now we have a core crowd. Then the crowd believe us for our quality because we try to do everything well in a way. Then they will tell their friends, okay, tonight, what are we doing? Let's go to a concert, let's go to a party because I've been there before, it's great. I don't know who they're bringing, but I know they always have high quality. So that's how you extend your community organically. Maybe this person has never been to an electronic music party or concert of this artist, but friends come, friends bring friends, friends bring friends. So that's how the community grows. I feel the best example in Europe, I would say, is the Documento Festival. So the first 2 years, they had a combination of big names in the industry and a lot of upcoming names. Then I think they had a really good balance of lineup and a good experience of the artists. Then in the past 2 years, they dropped all the big names pretty much. They only book artists I've never heard of even. So, but because we've all had the experience and they spend a whole year doing podcasts, doing sets, doing radio shows to make people understand all the artists on their roster, and they really nurtured their brand and their community. I think that's a good example probably for all of us, like financially and in terms of how educated Chinese market is. It might be risky and challenging to make our audience understand which artists I'm bringing. But if you build your community organically and make this community grow as well through friends, all sorts of social network, I think they will just believe your brand. They'll come for whoever you bring. That's really my experience.
There was that, I just think leads to one question I wanted to ask, the situation that Young described, and I think both Jeff and Archie touched on it, is that like Archie, with what you said, in kind of an absence of media and sort of these more specialized things, there's seems like some pressure here to do everything kind of yourself. And with what Young just described as, you know, there's sort of, I guess in other places you see this specialized, like there's ends here and the people pushing the artists here and the distribution here. And I guess each of what you do is kind of wide ranging, but in this environment where there's not so much specialized support, I wanted to ask how you try to decide how much of your effort to put on each of those different parts, trying to do everything for artists or for events.
I think the frustration for me has been, and I mean, to Young's example of Deckmantel, for example, I mean, I think it's a great example. I think they've done a wonderful, wonderful job of creating a whole ecosystem of things, right? They've got the label, they've got the festival, they've got the podcasts, they've got, you know, they're a media company with different resources, effectively all surrounding the artists that they believe in and the artists that they love. I haven't seen anything like that in China. And look, of course, the market in Holland is completely different to the market in China in terms of how long it's been around, and in terms of the kind of the depth of industry. I mean, I've spoken a lot, but I would like to just finish with something positive, because you know, I play devil's advocate a little bit. You know, maybe I'm a little bit, you know, negative on some of this stuff, just because the roadblocks and the challenges are really real and really big. But we all do it because we believe that there's a future in it, right? We all do it because there's been a massive growth. I mean, if you were in China in 2005, there were no live houses, there were no festivals, there were no DSPs, there was no touring artists, you know, there was nothing. It was ground zero. And 15 years on, we have what I just described as, you know, really quite a big, mature, complete, holistic kind of industry that caters to domestic artists primarily, but also to international artists. And there are opportunities. You need to be dedicated. And again, to Jane's point, I think a lot of the artists that have made that journey up the scale to getting bigger and bigger and bigger are artists that aren't necessarily big in the West. You know, the bigger successes that we've had organically with artists have been artists like Oliver Arnolds, artists like Hon, artists like Cigarettes After Sex, who are actually bigger in Asia than they are in the West. And so they have so they'll come to Asia twice a year. They'll play festivals, they'll do a tour. And it's that kind of commitment that I think the Chinese audience need to see. And again, if you look at all of those artists, there's a theme running through them, right? Which is, again, something we haven't talked about really.
So I'd like to thank all
final words, like
and yeah, that's time for today. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the session of the International Indie Music Season, and hope you're all doing well wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
大家好，我是国乐行者方锦龙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
Hello， 我是辛巴，来自西安，我是2020年上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
Hello， 大家好，我是科萨胡梦舟，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
I'm 陈光月，我来自江苏苏州，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是朱静熙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
This is Ruth Koleva. I'm going to be performing my new single On My Way on Showcase Problem.
我是 Kanjian，
我是方颂婷，
这是木兰，
马子木，
我是李硕，
我是陈悠如，
愉乐团的周瑜，
小颖，
大宽。
冷凌峰、艾丽亚、
林一杰、
贾巴山、
Weadly Navalny、
Ardes Codeline、
Andreas Bernitz。
我来自中国香港，
我来自新加坡、
中国湖南、
Korea。
We're from Ireland,
Italy, from the US,
Denmark,
四川大凉山
，Steve Rocks,
Vreys,
Pivo，
法门砥柱，
高博文，
普里古尔刚子，
杨旭凯，
太空船乐队
，Project Ace。
祝首届上海国际独立音乐季圆满成功！
热烈祝贺上海国际独立音乐季的顺利开幕！
衷心祝愿上海国际独立音乐季系列活动圆满成功。
This will be wonderful international cultural cooperation.
Let's keep on working together.
Wish you a very successful Shanghai International Indie Music Season.
We wish that your event will become a great platform for musicians from all over the world to discuss how to develop their music and how to get more focus on the copyright of music.
Have a great Shanghai International Indie Music Season.
Music and culture can also help build bridges across the nations.
Congratulate you on the great initiative.
衷心祝愿本次活动取得圆满成功，加油！
2020 상해 국제 독립음악제의 개최를 진심으로 축하하며 어머니 진솔리에바.
Let's take this time to encourage greater cultural cooperation and also between our flourishing music scenes.
I look forward to hearing the music from all over the world.
促進全球獨立音樂交融合作，
是音樂把我們大家連接在這裡。
Listen to the world's music.
Shanghai
International
Independent Music Season.
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
上海
国际独立音乐季，
上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
欢迎与我一起来支持独立音乐，支持原创音乐，尊重独立音乐，
包容艺术的多样性，从我做起，保护音乐版权。
在未来的3个月里，我们将在这里看见全球独立音乐行业新观点，
看见当下全球新锐的独立音乐人。
欢迎大家与我一起推动独立音乐的发展壮大，看见独立音乐的更多可能。Hello， 大家好，我是科萨胡梦舟，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
I'm 陈光月，我来自江苏苏州，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是朱静熙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季推荐官。
我是辛巴，我是2020年上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是国乐行者方锦龙，我是2020上海国际独立音乐季的推荐官。
我是方颂婷，
这是木兰，
马子木，
周瑜
，Weadly Navalny，
Ardes
Codeline，
Andreas Bernitz。
我来自中国香港、
新加坡、
湖南、
Ireland、
Italy,
Korea,
US,
Denmark,
四川 Steve Rocks,
Vreys,
Pivo，
法门砥柱，普里古尔刚子。
Listen to the world's music.
Shanghai International
Independent Music Season.
欢迎与我一起支持独立音乐。
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
上海
国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季，
我在上海国际独立音乐季。
欢迎与我一起来支持独立音乐，支持原创音乐，尊重独立音乐。
从我做起，保护音乐版权。
我们将在这里看见全球独立音乐行业新观点，
看见当下全球新锐的独立音乐人。
欢迎大家与我一起推动独立音乐的发展壮大，看见独立音乐的更多可能。